What do the wealthy do with their cash? There is no one answer. Every wealthy person does something different, so hopefully that makes you feel better. But to find out what our wealthy clients do, we're going to tell you after the intro. Welcome back to another episode of Playbook of the Wealthy. My name is Dave Grant. My co-host is Heather Townsend. We are here talking about the Benjamins. We're talking about cash and what our clients do with it. If you've not been here before, sit back, relax. We're going to tell you all about the content. We're going to answer some questions. We're going to tell you about ourselves, professional, personal. We haven't decided yet. All right, so we are talking about cash, where you hold it, what you do with it, how much interest you're earning, depending on different areas of your life. Heather's going to kick us off because she has some opinions. Boy, does she. So I'm going to let her loose and let her go. Heather, take us away.
All right. First of all, my opinions are based in data and facts. All right. And what I've seen. But where I want to go with this is cash is very important from a, let's say, de-risking standpoint in a client's financial plan. Cash is a necessity. I can honestly say that there is not one client that I don't have a cash target for. Would you agree, Dave? Every client of yours, you have a cash target for in some manner, right? I don't know about anyone else, but there's this pesky thing about unexpected expenses or things we can't predict, and they normally come in multiples. It's never just one. It's always like, I'm just paying my final remodel invoice. Here's a funny ha ha ha. And our pool pump is out. Like, let's just keep adding, right? Like, it's always something. But guess what? There's also such thing as too much cash. I don't consider cash as an investment.
Go back and listen to our episode on charts and you'll figure out that cash is one of the worst investments you can hold.
My point is, investing is the only way to outpace inflation. If you just keep in cash, you are literally getting poorer. So I want to start that cash is very important, but there is such thing as too much cash. You have to invest. You got to accept risk. Let's accept the calculated risk. Listen to our other podcast episodes. But there is a point to cash because we also don't want to have to sell investments at the wrong time, and we want you to be able to sleep well at night. So we're going to talk about how much should you have and where to hold it.
I think a lot of people care about how much first before where to put it.
Let's talk about how much.
All right, so let's talk about from young people to old people. By young, wide age range, we're talking about people who haven't retired yet. Typically, you're looking at rules of thumb. You're looking at 3 to 6 months of your expenses. That can wildly vary. If you are a single household purely earning commissions, you obviously want more cash because you never know when those commissions are coming in and there is no backstop. It's just you. Versus if you have two tenured people on a guaranteed salary contract and they are really difficult to fire, that you can have a little bit less money because the chances of you getting fired and knowing about it, you can have a long runway there. It also depends on what your expenses are. How many of those expenses are variable that you can just cut off if things go really bad? And how many of them are fixed? If they're all fixed expenses, you obviously want more money in your reserves. And if you can live on a shoestring, you don't need that much.
I mean, I like to talk about us as an example because I think people learn from when they can have an example. So my mortgage is very low to our income. I did that on purpose. And I would put myself as a business owner more in like reoccurring revenue, right? I'm not like a real estate agent or a mortgage broker or something that's commission based, right? I wouldn't say I need 6 to 12 months because my husband also has a W-2 job. So we're a 2-income household and we have relatively stable-ish income. Okay. So, sure. And we have a taxable investment account. That's the other thing. I have investments that are liquid. It's not all in real estate. It's not all in retirement. So we probably only keep 3 months of cash because of what I just said. I don't like holding too much cash, but I also have cash in my business, cash for taxes. So there is cash kind of spread out around, let's say. But in our individual household, I only keep about 3 months of our fixed expenses with a small discretionary spending because I'm like, if something happened, we're not going to St. Lucia.
Oh, baby. So sad. So if we're talking personal, I can share too. We split our emergency fund up between personal and business. So we keep 50% of it in our personal accounts and 50% of it in the business accounts. We probably have 5 months of expenses across the two, knowing that if my income took a hit, I'd obviously keep the same income coming out of the business for a while. So that's why I keep cash there. And then Sarah switched over to the administrative side of teaching. So she's now not tenured. So then we obviously need more cash there, that if she takes another position and doesn't get it straight away, we obviously need cash there outside the business. So it's split, not really intentionally, but that's just that's the way the cookie crumbled.
It is intentional for me though. And this is what I wanted to talk about on how much. For my business owner clients, I actually think most of my business owners have at least 1 month of operating expenses as a buffer in their business, as their emergency savings in their business. I treat a business as its own separate entity, and it has its own emergency savings. So, of course, I do that.
It does depend on what the business does, though, and what the cash flow of the business is. Our business is very difficult for it to go from 100 to 0 because we have so many clients. If you have a business that is not recession proof, it can very quickly go from 100 to 0. Yes. So depends on the business, depends on the employees, depends on your payroll, depends on a lot of different factors. But I agree. I do have business owners hold more cash if they're in an industry that is more susceptible to the economy and if they have more overhead and more employees.
Yes. Okay, so let's go back to personal. We would say somewhere between 3 to 6 months, would you say, of cash for emergency reserves?
I'm going to say 3 to 6 months typically. If you're in an industry where your income can disappear, I'm holding as much as 12.
Retirees, your favorite people to talk about. Dave, I'll let you take this one.
I love this. So retirees, it's interesting, kind of morphs into a beast of its own because your emergency fund and how much cash you've got lined up for your income kind of forms into one, because you don't actually need an official emergency fund anymore if you've got cash lined up for your income for the next 12 to 36 months. So that's where it becomes interesting. But typically, if you're retired and you're living off your portfolio and minimal pensions, I am having people with minimum of 12 months of cash. Probably maximum I have right now is 4 years of income lined up just in cash. Now that cash could be invested in different accounts, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it's very liquid. They can get to it in 2 days maximum.
It is very different when you shift to someone who is in financial freedom or retiree, where the emergency savings goes away because they have assets, they have liquidity. They are their income. They supply their income. Their investments supply their income. And of course, you might have Social Security, you might have pension, but it is very true. It is a completely different mindset. But yes. And what we should have said is when we're talking about months, we're talking about living expenses. And I would agree with you. My retirees are somewhere between 1 and 3. I don't know if I actually have a retiree who's chosen 1. I think most of them are like the lowest might be 1.5.
I have people who have more set income streams. So if they have a pension or if they're already pulling Social Security or if they have annuities, they have less cash. So because every month they know that cash is going to come in. And if they have an emergency, it's going to be X amount of dollars, but they know that in a maximum of 32 days, they get another inflow of money. So we need less cash on hand.
Yeah. All right. The other thing I want to talk about on how much is, and there's a big debate on this in the financial planning world. I want to actually know where you land on this, Dave. But if you are saving for a short-term goal, let's say a home, a car, you can't save it in 2 months, right? You're going to save for it over a year, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be some time. That does not go in the stock market, in my opinion. It does not. I do not put that money in the stock market. But my question to you is, at what point, how long out is that goal before you go, let's invest it? So is it 3 years? If they're going to buy that house in 3 years, is that in cash? Or is it in the stock market? Or is it 4 or 5? I've heard someone say as low as 3. I don't know why. I'll tell you where I'd land right now. That makes me nervous. 3 is still, that's short in my eyes.
I would go anything less than 5 needs to be in a interest-bearing account that cannot go below 0.
Agree.
And
And
people hate that. They're like, but I can get some risk. I can get some return on it. Even some of the charts we showed in one of our last episodes was 3 years, you're almost guaranteed to be positive. And people hold on to the word guaranteed to be positive, and I'm hanging on to the word almost. Because if you're saving for a house and you go through a downturn and your $30,000 down payment is now 24, well, that just changed the game. Now you're $6,000 out of what you were hoping to be.
a good example, though, is I will have the conversation with a client. Like, my husband and I at some point are going to need a bigger house, or we're going to buy a second home. I know we're going to buy more real estate in the future at some point, but I don't know when that is. And if the stock market took a downturn, I would be okay not buying it. I don't need it. It's not a need.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like when everything kind of falls in place, when I feel confident, when I don't, haven't just done a remodel, I will go ahead and, maybe make that purchase. So I think in that case, if you don't have a definite time, like in my mind, I'm not keeping that in cash. I know it's in my future vision, but I don't know when.
All right. So people hopefully have an idea of how much they should have in their savings, depending on who they are, what their risk tolerance is, what stage of life they're in. Now let's talk about where you're going to put it. We have clients in multiple different places holding cash, partly for different reasons and partly because different interest rates. So I think the first place you're going to hold cash is not your bank where your checking account is. Can we just get that off the bat straight away? Bank savings accounts are horrible.
Yeah. Do you want to know what it pays?
Well, I think we use the same bank, so I'm well aware. It's not much.
It's abysmal. It is pathetic. It's basically why bother? It is 0.02%, not 2%, not 20 bips, 0.02%. It is basically zero.
Yeah. So that's why if you're holding cash, even as an emergency fund, you don't do it in the bank. All right. The first place you're going to go, high yield savings account. You'll typically find these in online banks. So your Ally, your Marcus, your Amex, Discover, anywhere that's going to call it a high yield savings account, right now they're between 3 and 4.5%. They're going to be different because there's teaser rates on some of them. And so you're going to find a high yield savings account. If it's got a higher rate, you want to look at the fine print because that could be a rate for the first 9 months and then it drops down.
A woman in my circle was, I've been holding her accountable. I'm like, you need to open a high yield savings account, woman. And she got paralyzed by the options because, they're 10.1% difference, 0.2% difference. I was like, do you know what that equates to on $50,000 versus what interest you're missing on the month that you're deciding? Like, just make a decision. This is not where you're going to get wealthy based on 0.2% difference. Pick one and go. That's my little tangent.
Yeah, I think the more important part is having this high yield savings account linked to your checking account. Because there's a chance that you may want to transfer money to and from. And if that high yield savings account is in a silo and has a checkbook with it, or you have to physically transfer money another way, that's an annoyance. And so if you need to take a lower interest rate, but you have connected to your bank account, that's a plus.
I use Ally, and I love Ally because of the buckets. I would say a majority of my clients use Ally because we're all busy professionals and or even my retirees. And it's so nice to be like, this much is for property taxes. This much was for my remodel. This much is for my personal emergency savings. And I don't need like 4 different bank accounts to track all of this. It can be one bank account and I can put it in buckets for my goals. I love Ally.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's skip the next point. I want to talk about money markets first because the other example was a little bit more long-winded. The difference, Heather Townsend, between a high yield savings account and a money market. Can you fill us in?
There is a little bit more risk with money markets than cash, I would say. They're normally not FDIC insured either. They're SPIC insured? I think that's the right acronym.
Mm-hmm.
We won't. That's a whole nother tangent we'll go on. but they normally earn more than a high yield savings account. That, at least in my case, the one I use for my clients is that Schwab. It's Schwab's money market, and it earns a higher yield than Ally does, for example.
And you can get different rates with different amounts of money you put in the money market. Like if you are parking money for a short period of time, let's say you live in California, you sold your house, you got $1.5 million in proceeds. Before you buy your next house, you need to park it. You may get a better rate on a money market with that amount of money than you would someone with 100 grand in a money market. So there's different tiers there. The downside is it's not as liquid. Like you will have to sell a money market and let it settle because it is an investment. So if you needed it the next day, you may be able to, depending on who you're using as your custodian, so Charles Schwab or Fidelity, but there's no guarantee. They have different times on this. So if you need the money potentially next day, you want to keep it in that high yield savings account. If you're looking to park it for a longer period of time and don't need it as liquid, money market is just fine. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about is laddered CDs or brokered CDs. This is kind of when you get into the weeds with cash, when you're a retiree, most likely. Because when you're starting to say, okay, if I need 3 years of income lined up, I don't want it in the stock market, but I also don't need it all now. How can I get the best rate of return? Not rate of return, how can I get the best interest on this? And that's typically what you do with a laddered CD. So you pick a 1-year CD, this is money that you need 12 months from now, and you park how much you need. If you want to get technical, you park slightly less than what you need and the interest rate will true you up. Don't do that if you don't have help. Then you say, okay, well, what money do I need 2 years from now? And then you'll buy the 2-year CD. Go on and on, however long you want that CD ladder to last for. But then you essentially are building out your steps of, okay, 3 years from now, that's the income. If I need more, I can add some on. But that's typically how you're going to get the best interest rate and kind of be diligent with your money and not have it all accessible at once.
Well, because the Fed had just recently lowered interest rates, I think by 25 basis points. So what happened to high yield savings accounts? They went down by 25 basis points. For example, if they were paying 4, they're now paying 3.75, right? Of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Why I'm giving this example is I love brokered CDs better than bank CDs because brokered CDs are more liquid. If I had to, I could sell them in the market. They're also FDIC insured. So I'm buying these for my clients at Schwab. And when I've used these was in a time where a client was saving for a big purchase. We had a lot of cash. We needed it FDIC insured. We could split it around multiple banks, right? The 250. And based on everything that was going on in the news, it was likely that interest rates were going to drop, just based on things we were hearing. So we wanted to lock in a higher rate, the rate that we could get right now. So that's where we did it for a CD, because we knew that we weren't going to need the cash, let's say for 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. And we did kind of layer it. And that was also a hedge against, well, what if interest rates do go down? We want this rate now. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it can get technical. Cash can get technical, of course, and it depends on, but emergency savings, I'm not doing laddered CDs or brokered CDs. I'm not doing that. It is more for a timed purchase. Another great example is a client had an estate proceeds and it was wrapped up in the estate. We had to wait for probate to complete. It is a sizable lump sum. We wanted it FDIC insured. We wanted the top rate. We did a brokered CD in the estate.
Yeah. All right, here's a tip for you. We have slightly mentioned it, but we haven't explicitly said so. If you're doing laddered CDs, do not go through your bank. You will get terrible rates. You have to do it through a brokerage account, because then that brokerage account can shop every single bank in the country to find the best rate CD for you. And some of these CDs can be new. Some of these can be people are selling their old CDs that have a different rate. You're going to get so many different options that is going to be far better than your local bank CD offering.
Sometimes.
All the time. Guaranteed.
No, do you know what's interesting, Dave? Because I looked into this. One client was like, Heather, what about this CD? And I was like, well, Schwab doesn't offer that because it's actually what bank relationships, I had to go down a way big rabbit hole with this. It's what relationships Schwab has or whatever brokerage has with those banks. So if they don't have a relationship with that bank, they're not going to put the CD on the platform. Yeah.
All right, I have a question for you before we move on. Can someone hold too much cash in their emergency fund?
120%. I had a client like this. They needed to invest. They are young, and really they were holding way more cash than they had in investments. But their number that they needed to sleep well at night was much higher than what my number was for them. So we had to come up with a compromise. So we have somewhere like 6 months of cash in a high yield savings account. And the other 6 months, I put them in a 50-50 portfolio, very conservative portfolio. So I get some growth, a little bit more growth than a high yield savings account, but that was our compromise. But yes, I do think there is such thing as too much cash.
So I actually don't think there's too much that someone can have in an emergency fund, assuming their plan is stable and
Like
the projection is great.
Assuming they're meeting all their financial targets of savings to save to be in financial freedom when they want. So we're assuming that they are investing what they need based on their goals. Is that what we're assuming?
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah. I'm pretty much saying they're on track. But if someone came to me and said, I don't feel comfortable with 50,000, I need 125,000. I mean, yes, I'm going to ask why and kind of drill into that. Tell me what's the difference between the numbers and what's keeping you up at night with 50 versus the larger number. But assuming it works out, I don't care because it's the gut check for the individual.
Okay, how about this one now? Let's say they need 125, but they're not taking this dream family trip and they're sitting on the cash. Now what, Dave?
I'm going to ask a lot of why questions because there has to be a reason why someone wants that amount of cash. And sometimes it's like really deep rooted of when my parents were growing up, we went through a period where we didn't really have enough food because we went through this episode. And it was like, okay, that is an ingrained memory to you and you don't want to go through it, but that is disconnected to your current reality. Like you're not going to go through that because of X, Y, and Z.
Well, that's our job.
And so some of those are deep rooted problems.
This is a more nuanced, and actually this is a great tie-in to these questions. So the questions we got about cash, I just stepped back and I was like, as I read these questions, I realized how beneficial it is to have a financial plan. Because if you have a financial plan, it answered a lot of these listener questions.
I did. Before we get to the questions, we're going to ask a favor. Even if this is your first time or this is the 75th episode that you've watched, we don't have 75 episodes, but I'm assuming you've watched one more than twice. Please subscribe on YouTube or follow on the platform that you're listening to the podcast on. That's all I'm going to ask. Nothing else. Subscribe or follow. Thank you. So, talking about questions, let's go into the question section of our podcast. It's called What Would You Do? All right, question number 1. Heather, you ready? You all loosened up? Ready to go?
Go. Fire. All
right,
fire.
Question number 1. Question number 1. I have to read it. Question number 1. I routinely have $7,500 in excess cash each month. I've maximized my retirement savings, but I'm unsure what to do with the money. What do you suggest?
All right, let's know if you're on track. Are you on track for your goals, your financial freedom goals? If you are, then this is the best part of financial planning. This is my favorite part. This is when the good stuff happens. This is when you get to go spend it on the fun stuff, the really big goals. How do you change your life for the better? How do you go after your ideal life? Be clear on the things that will make a difference. And this is, again, why I love a financial plan. My clients, I literally, in their financial plan, have a to-do list of their goals. So it's like, ooh, we have extra cash. I go to that list. What came out of your ideal life vision meeting? And should we go after one of these? It's fun. Go for it. Go have some fun.
I agree. If you're on track, take a little bit of that money and just go crazy with it. Nothing huge, but just do stuff that you would never usually do. Live a life that you think is not available to you with 10% of that money. Just go for it.
For me,
But
because
be responsible with the rest.
Yeah, for me, I know, and this ties into the second question. For me to feel good because I know what compounding money is, that's kind of the double-edged sword of being a financial planner. I have to put some of that in investments so I can enjoy the rest. I just do.
True. Yeah, I just jumped on question number 2. All right, well, let's go there first. All right, following a job change, which resulted in payouts and sign-on bonuses, I have $400,000 in cash sitting in my savings accounts. I've never had this much cash before. If I allocate some towards my financial goals and savings, what's a sensible amount to spend on fun things?
Can I just say, this is why a financial plan is so important. Like, if you had a financial plan, we would know if you're behind on your financial freedom goals or if you're ahead. Knowing that answer right there would depend on how much of that 400 gets applied to investments or not, right? But let's assume I have to go back. A financial plan answers this. You answer it. You have an answer.
40 grand. Take 10%. Go nuts. Save the other 360. That's your answer. 10%. All right, go for 3.
For my cash amounts, I have been rotating CDs at different banks. I'm getting tired of this since my cash goes over FDIC limits and I need to use 3 banks. Is there a simpler solution?
So this is actually a real problem because people hold a lot of cash, and FDIC limits, they have a ceiling, but it's all based on how you title the account. So let's say that you are married and you just want to use one bank. You can put money up to the FDIC limit and account in your name. Then you can do an FDIC limit account in your spouse's name. Then you can do a joint account up to an FDIC limit as well. It's all 3 different titles. You definitely want to check with the bank that they are okay with this and that they agree with you because they're following the FDIC limit rules. If that is not something you want to do, because that is putting a lot of your money in one bank, you can use services. I've got maxmyinterest.com, and Heather, you're going to talk about another one. But these you pretty much give your money to, and they split it out for you. So they are going to find the banks the best interest rates, and they're going to split your money up different titles so you're underneath the FDIC limit. But all you have to do is go in through this portal and manage it.
Do you know where I found this the most, Dave? It's not on the individual side. For me, it was on the business owner side. Some of my clients' businesses have to hold a lot of cash, right? Let's assume they have investor money. Someone came in and invested. They're not going to just go spend it in the first month, right? They're going to hold that and deploy that over years. Or they have tons of employees. We have to hold some payroll funds. I mean, we have cash issues, my business owner clients, way over FDIC limits. So Flourish, I actually discovered and I love because it's exactly what you talk about. They split it amongst the different banks to make sure you're always FDIC, limit. I think they pay more or similar to Ally. So it's a high yield savings account. And it's be in business owner names. Like Ally, I couldn't open a business, like a Townsend Financial bank account, right? This can be named in the business, which is what I liked. So I have it for business owner clients. And then my business owner clients are like, wait, Heather, I actually like this better than my personal high yield savings. So they've started opening personal high yield savings. But I would say this really comes into play for me with my business owner clients. And Flourish was the solution that I found actually earlier this year, and I love it. I even have my own business high yield savings there.
All right, that's the end of the questions. We are going into highlights. Highlights is where we tell you personal, professional things about us, whether you want to listen or not. I have had an interesting week with the niche that I serve. So I serve as one of my niches, AbbVie pharmaceutical executives. So they work at AbbVie. Their compensation plan is quite complex, so that's why they need the help maximizing that and then putting it into their personal life. I have a trend. When someone finds me and they work at AbbVie, they then leave AbbVie to go work somewhere else. And I don't know what's going on. It's on the verge of happening for the 3rd time. And I'm like, oh, Is this me? Is this AbbVie as a company? Is this you as your personal growth in your career? I don't know. But one was fine, but 3 times is kind of bizarre.
That's funny. Is it because you show them how they're compensated and then because I've seen this with my clients with complex compensation, the execs, they now know in an easy place, like, this is how much your RSU comp is. This is your total compensation package. We can put it in a pretty bow for them. And now they know how to go and negotiate in the marketplace. That is what I found. Is that why you think it's happening? Or is it that they thought they were making more and then they aren't making as much? Like, what do you think it is? Or is it different reasons?
It's all different. Like for some, it's they needed just a different culture fit. For others, it's a compensation thing, knowing that they can negotiate the same or a better position for a lot more money at a different company. It's just weird that the other niche I serve with teachers, obviously they're not going anywhere, but these guys are, obviously they are well sought after. A lot of these people are getting contacted by headhunters, and so they know that they can jump and earn a lot more money and still do meaningful work.
So mine is kind of funny. It comes off, I don't know how best to say this, but I've called it, I did my adult Vegas trip, and why I've been saying that comes off wrong when you hear Vegas. I understand that. But the last time I was in Vegas was I was 24. I didn't really have the means I have now. And I think I went on someone else's parents that invited me, right? Like very different situation. So here at 38, I go to Vegas with my own means, and we get to go to shows. There are no clubs involved. We go to bed by like 9 or 10, right? This is adult Vegas with kids. We gamble, but we gamble what we're like, okay, losing, right? And it was so fun. I mean, I don't know if I need to go back anytime soon, but it was really, really fun. First of all, if anyone hasn't been to Vegas anytime soon, I was recommended to see the show Absinthe. It was hysterical. I accidentally bought the front row, and why that was bad was the guy makes fun of people in the front row. Alex and I were called Bond villains, and he called on Alex and goes, "You're definitely on your second marriage." And I just couldn't stop laughing because it was true. And comical. And then we also saw the Sphere, which was amazing. The Wizard of Oz. We saw the Sphere, like the apples fell down from the Sphere is awesome. Awesome. I might want to see a concert there actually. But it was just really fun. And the other thing I learned is travel. I traveled with a new couple, and they have just amazing energy. And it was just really nice to find a couple you actually enjoy traveling with that are similar to your values, and how different that energy is, right? When you travel with a couple, it's amazing. I just came back. I wasn't drained. I wasn't tired. I was like, oh, I'd do that all over again. It was, really fun. So that's I
agree. That sounds like a lot of fun. And when you said it was your adult Vegas trip, I'm like, is there a kids Vegas trip? Does that exist? But then you start explaining it, and now it makes sense. The responsible Vegas trip.
The responsible Vegas trip. Like I was not hungover. I mean, I drank, but I was not hungover, right? Like it was just nice and fun. And we all have kids that went, and we were like, yeah, we're not bringing our kids here. I would not want to bring my kids to Vegas.
And Vegas for me has a timeline. I'm like, I don't know if I can spend a week in Vegas. Probably 2 to 3 days is probably my cap. 2 nights is my cap. I knew that going in. And so I knew I can show up my best for 2 nights. So that's what I did. And it was amazing. All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Playbook of the Wealthy. You can find us on whichever platform you listen to podcasts. And if you want to watch the video version, you can. It's on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you want to send us a message to the show, you can email us at hello@playbookotw.com. And we will see you next time.
Toodles!
All opinions expressed by Dave Grant and Heather Townsend are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the views of their respective wealth management firms. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Nothing in this material constitutes a solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. Clients of Retirement Matters and Townsend Financial may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.